Hello, my lovely English learners. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm Evelyn, and I'm so happy you're here with me today. If you're new here, hi, welcome. You're in exactly the right place. We share a new English learning video every day, so you always have something useful, practical, and encouraging to help you grow, even on busy days when you only have a little time. Today is going to feel like a calm and friendly English class. Just you and me. And in this lesson, we're going to focus on something very important for real communication: how to talk about your day in English in a more natural, clear, and confident way, especially at a B2 to C1 level. That means today we are not only practicing English, we are building fluency. We are learning how to describe experiences, explain routines, talk about feelings, share small details, connect events, and speak in a way that sounds more thoughtful, natural, and expressive. So please keep a pen and paper near you, because I want you to practice with me step by step. You'll improve two very important skills at the same time: your listening and your writing. And if you speak the examples out loud with me, your speaking will improve too. In this lesson, you'll learn how to talk about your morning, your work or study life, your habits, your plans, your emotions, and even the small moments that make your day feel easy, stressful, productive, interesting, or memorable. We'll go through realistic examples and useful practice, so you can understand natural English better and use it in your own life more confidently. A lot of English learners know many words, but still feel stuck when someone asks a simple question like, "How was your day?" Or, "What did you do today?" If that has ever happened to you, don't worry, because today we're going to make that easier, little by little, sentence by sentence, until your ideas start flowing more naturally. Before we begin, may I ask you for one small favor? If these lessons help you, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss the next lesson. And thank you so much for learning with me. It truly means a lot. Okay, get comfortable, take your pen and paper, and let's start slowly, clearly, and confidently together. Let's start with a very simple idea, something that happens almost every day in our lives. Talking about our day. It sounds easy, right? But many English learners suddenly feel stuck when someone asks a question like, "How was your day?" Or, "What did you do today?" Maybe you know the words, maybe you understand the question, but explaining your day clearly, step by step, with details and feelings, can feel surprisingly difficult. So today we're going to change that together, slowly, naturally, and confidently. When we talk about our day in English, we are really telling a small story, a story about time, about actions, about people, and about how we felt during those moments. Native speakers do this without thinking too much, but the good news is that you can learn this skill too. And once you understand the pattern, your English will start flowing much more smoothly. Imagine a friend asking you this simple question. "So, how was your day today?" Instead of answering with just one short sentence like, "It was good," or "It was busy," you can share a fuller response, something like, It was actually a really productive day. I woke up a bit earlier than usual, had a quiet breakfast, and then spent most of the morning working on an important project. Do you see the difference? In the second answer, you are giving a clearer picture, almost like painting a small scene with your yes words. Let's practice listening to how a natural answer might sound. Imagine this person describing their morning. Listen carefully to the rhythm and flow of the sentences. Well, my day started pretty early today. I woke up around 6:30, which is a bit earlier than usual for me. At first I felt a little sleepy, but after making a cup of coffee, I started feeling more awake. I spent about 20 minutes reading the news, and then I got ready for work. The morning felt calm and quiet, which I really enjoyed. This kind of answer is what we call descriptive speaking. You're not only saying what happened, you're also giving small details, feelings, and timing. Those little pieces make your English sound much more natural. Now let's slow down and practice together. I'm going to give you a simple situation, and I want you to imagine your own answer. If possible, pause the video and say your answer out loud. Speaking aloud helps your brain build stronger language connections. Here's the situation. Someone asks you, "How did your morning start today?" Take a moment and think about it. Maybe your answer could sound something like this. My morning started a little slowly today. I woke up around 7, and the first thing I did was check my phone. After that, I made some tea and sat near the window for a few minutes. It was quiet outside, so it felt like a peaceful start to the day. Notice how the sentences are connected naturally. We use phrases like, the first thing I did, after that, for a few minutes. These small connectors help your story move forward smoothly. Let's try another example together. Imagine someone asking you, "What did you do after you woke up today?" Here is a possible answer. After I woke up, I stayed in bed for a few minutes, just thinking about the day ahead. Then I got up, washed my face, and made breakfast. I kept things simple this morning, just some toast and eggs. But it was enough to give me energy for the day. You can see that talking about your day often follows a natural timeline. First, then, after that, later. These time expressions help listeners understand the order of events clearly. Now let's practice building a longer answer together. Imagine your friend asking, "So what was the most interesting part of your day today?" You might say something like, "The most interesting part of my day happened in the afternoon. I had a conversation with a colleague about a new idea we're working on. At first it was just a casual discussion, but as we talked more, we started realizing that the idea actually had a lot of potential. That moment felt exciting because it made the whole day feel meaningful." When you talk like this, you're doing more than reporting actions. You're sharing thoughts and emotions too. That is one of the keys to speaking at a B2 or C1 level, expressing not just events, but also reactions and reflections. Let's pause for a moment and do a speaking exercise together. I'm going to give you a short prompt, and I want you to answer it with at least 3 sentences. Try to imagine real details from your life Here's the prompt. Describe how your morning usually begins. Take a moment and try to say your answer out loud. If you need help, here is an example answer you can learn from. My mornings usually begin quite quietly. I wake up around 7 and the first thing I like to do is open the window. Fresh air always helps me wake up properly. After that, I make a cup of coffee and spend a few minutes planning the day ahead. Notice how this answer includes routine, feeling, and small details. That combination makes your English sound more alive and expressive. Now let's explore another common question people ask during conversations. Was your day busy? Many learners answer this with just one word. Yes, or very busy, but at a higher level, you can expand your answer naturally. For example, yes, it was quite a busy day actually. I had several tasks to finish before the afternoon, so I spent most of the morning focusing on my work. There were a few unexpected problems, which made things a little stressful, but in the end, everything worked out. This kind of answer shows a clear yes situation, a challenge, and a resolution. That storytelling structure makes your speech more engaging. Let's practice again together. Imagine someone asks you, "Did anything surprising happen today?" Here's an example response. Actually, something a little unexpected did happen today. I ran into an old friend while I was walking home. We hadn't seen each other in years. So we ended up standing there and talking for almost half an hour. It was a really pleasant surprise. Moments like these are perfect when talking about your day because they add personality to your story. Now let's do another speaking practice exercise together. Think about this question. What made you smile today? Pause for a moment and answer with 3 or 4 sentences if you can. If you need inspiration, here is one possible answer. One small thing that made me smile today happened during my lunch break. I was sitting outside enjoying the sunshine, and a little dog came running across the park. It looked so happy and energetic that everyone nearby started laughing. It was a simple moment, but it really lifted my mood. When you describe moments like this, your English becomes more emotional and expressive, which is exactly what happens in real conversations. Another useful skill when talking about your day is explaining how your energy or mood changed during the day. For example, at the beginning of the day, I felt quite motivated and focused, but by mid-afternoon, I started feeling a little tired, so I took a short break. After that, I felt refreshed and ready to continue working. Notice how the speaker describes the shift in feelings throughout the day. That kind of explanation makes your story richer and more detailed. Let's practice this idea together now. Think about your own day so far and answer this question. How did your energy change during the day? You might say something like, my energy was a bit low in the morning because I didn't sleep very well last night. But after having coffee and starting my work, I slowly began to feel more focused. By the afternoon, I was much more productive and alert. This type of explanation helps listeners understand your experience more clearly, and it also shows your ability to describe time and emotion together. Now let's practice a slightly longer reflection about a day. Listen to this carefully. Today felt like one of those days where everything moved quickly. In the morning, I was focused on finishing a task I had been working on for several days. Once I finally completed it, I felt a huge sense of relief. Later in the afternoon, I had some time to relax and reflect, which made the whole day feel balanced and satisfying. This type of reflection is very common in everyday conversations, especially when people are sharing their experiences with friends or colleagues. Now it's your turn to try something similar. Think about your day and try to answer this question aloud. What was the most satisfying moment of your day? Take a moment to think and speak your answer slowly, clearly, and confidently. Remember, fluency doesn't come from speaking fast. It comes from expressing your thoughts clearly and naturally. And the more you practice describing small moments from your day, the easier English conversation becomes. Keep your mind relaxed. Keep your sentences simple, and most importantly, keep speaking. Because every sentence you speak is one more step toward real English fluency. Now let's continue exploring how to talk about your day in a deeper and more natural way. Because when conversations become more advanced, people don't only describe events, they also explain reasons, thoughts, and reactions. These extra details make your English sound much more natural, and they help the listener feel more connected to your story. Think about a moment when someone asks you, "What kept you busy today?" Many learners answer quickly with something short like, "I worked," or "I studied." But when you speak at a B2 or C1 level, you can turn that simple answer into a fuller explanation, something that sounds more thoughtful and expressive. For example, you could say something like, most of my day was spent working on a project that required a lot of concentration. At first I thought it would only take a couple of hours, but once I started looking into the details, I realized there was much more to do than I expected. So I ended up spending most of the afternoon focusing on that task. Do you notice how the speaker adds small explanations, like what they expected and how the situation changed? These kinds of details make the story feel real and engaging. Let's slow down and practice this skill together. Imagine someone asking you, "What did you spend most of your time doing today?" Take a moment to think about your answer. You might say something like this: "I spent most of my time today preparing for something important. I had several things to organize, and I wanted to make sure everything was ready ahead of time. It took a lot of focus, but by the end of the day, I felt satisfied with what I accomplished." When you speak like this, you're showing progress during the day, beginning, middle, and result. This kind of structure helps listeners follow your story easily. Now let's practice another common situation. Sometimes people ask, "Was today different from a normal day for you?" That question invites you to compare, and comparison is a powerful way to expand your English speaking ability. For example, "Actually, today was a little different from my usual routine. Normally, my mornings are quite quiet, but today I had to deal with several unexpected things. It made the day feel a bit more hectic than usual." although in the end, everything worked out fine. Notice how the speaker uses comparison words like normally, today, and more than usual. These phrases help explain the difference clearly. Now it's your turn to try. Imagine someone asking you, was today similar to your normal routine or different? Take a moment and answer aloud with 3 or 4 sentences. If you need an example, here is one possible response. Today was fairly similar to my usual routine. I started the morning with breakfast and some quiet planning time. Then I focused on my work for a few hours. The only difference was that I took a longer break in the afternoon because I needed some time to relax. This kind of answer sounds calm, natural, and very conversational. Now let's explore something else that often appears in daily conversations. Talking about challenges during the day. No day is perfect, and sometimes sharing small difficulties makes your conversation a more authentic and relatable. For example, someone might say, "To be honest, the morning started a little rough today. I had trouble concentrating, and it felt like things were moving more slowly than usual. But after taking a short walk and clearing my mind, I was able to refocus and continue working." This answer is interesting because it shows a small problem and how the speaker handled it. That kind of storytelling makes conversations feel meaningful. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. Did anything difficult happen during your day? Pause for a moment and try to answer with a short explanation. You might say something like, "There was a moment today when I felt a little overwhelmed. I had several things to finish at the same time, and it was hard to decide where to start. So I decided to just slow down, make a list, and focus on one task at a time." This type of response shows problem solving, which is something people talk about often in real-life conversations. Now let's practice describing a positive moment from the day. Sometimes people ask, "What was the highlight of your day?" The word highlight simply means the best or most enjoyable moment. For example, "The highlight of my day happened in the evening. After finishing my work, I finally had some time to relax. I went for a short walk outside, and the weather was beautiful. The fresh air and quiet atmosphere made the whole day feel peaceful." This kind of description helps create a vivid picture in the listener's mind. Let's try a speaking exercise together now. I want you to answer this question aloud. What was the most relaxing moment of your day? Take a moment, think about it, and speak your answer slowly. If you want an example, here is one possible answer. "The most relaxing moment of my day happened later in the afternoon. After finishing several tasks, I decided to take a short break. I made some tea, sat down near the window, and just enjoyed the quiet moment. It helped me recharge my energy." Notice how simple actions, like making tea or sitting quietly, can become a meaningful story when you describe them clearly. Now let's talk about another very important part of describing your day. Talking about people. Many daily experiences involve other people. Friends, co-workers, family members, or even strangers. For example, During the afternoon, I had a really interesting conversation with a colleague. We started talking about work, but the conversation slowly turned into a discussion about travel and culture. It was one of those conversations that made the afternoon feel much shorter. When you describe interactions like this, your story becomes more engaging and dynamic. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. Did you have any interesting conversations today? Pause for a moment and try answering in 3 sentences. Here is one possible example. Yes, I actually had a nice conversation earlier today. I was talking with a friend about future plans, and we started sharing ideas about things we would like to learn or try in the future. It turned into a very inspiring discussion. You can see how this type of response focuses not only on what happened, but also on the feeling of the conversation. Now let's expand our speaking practice a little more. Imagine someone asking you this question. If you could describe your entire day in just a few sentences, what would you say? That question invites you to summarize your experience. Here is an example answer. If I had to summarize my day, I would say it was productive but also balanced. I managed to finish several tasks that had been waiting for a while, and at the same time, I found small moments to relax and recharge. Overall, it felt like a satisfying day. This kind of reflection helps you organize your thoughts clearly. Now it's your turn to try. Think about your day so far and answer this question aloud. How would you describe your day in 3 or 4 sentences? Take your time, speak slowly, and focus on clarity rather than speed. Remember, fluency grows through repetition, and every time you describe your day in English, your brain becomes more comfortable forming ideas naturally. Let's finish this section with one more reflective example. Looking back at today, I realized that even small moments can make a big difference. A short conversation, a quiet break, or finishing an important task. These small experiences gradually shape how the entire day feels. When you learn to express thoughts like this, your English becomes more thoughtful, expressive, and advanced. And the more you practice sharing your daily experiences, the easier it becomes to speak naturally in real conversations. So keep practicing, keep reflecting, and most importantly, keep speaking. Because every small story you tell about your day builds stronger confidence in your English. Let's continue building your ability to talk about your day in a way that sounds thoughtful and natural. Because when conversations become deeper, people often describe not only what happened, but also how they experienced the day emotionally and how certain moments influence their mood or perspective. This type of speaking helps you sound more expressive and confident in English. Imagine someone asking you a slightly more reflective question, something like, "How did your day feel overall?" This question is not only about events, it is about the atmosphere of this day, the emotional tone, the energy you experienced from morning to evening. For example, you might answer like this. Overall, the day felt surprisingly calm and productive. I expected things to be stressful because I had several responsibilities waiting for me, but once I started working, everything moved smoothly. By the end of The afternoon. I felt quite satisfied with what I had managed to accomplish. Notice how this answer focuses on expectations, experiences, and final feelings. That structure makes your story more engaging and mature. Now let's practice expanding a simple answer together. If someone asks you, "How was your afternoon?" a basic answer might be, "It was good." But a richer answer might sound like this: "My afternoon turned out to be more productive than I expected. At first I felt a little distracted, but once I started focusing on my tasks, I managed to make steady progress. By the time the evening arrived, I felt relieved that I had used my time well." Do you notice how the speaker describes a small emotional journey, starting with distraction, then focus, then relief? That is exactly the kind of detail that makes your English sound advanced. Now let's practice a speaking exercise together. Think about this question. What part of your day required the most focus? Pause for a moment and try answering in 3 or 4 sentences. If you want an example, here is one possible response. The part of my day that required the most focus happened during the late morning. I had to work on something that demanded careful attention, so I tried to eliminate distractions and concentrate fully. It was challenging at first, but once I became deeply involved in the task, time started passing much more quickly. This type of description helps listeners understand how you experience the moment, not just what happened. Now let's explore another common situation, talking about unexpected changes during the day. Real life rarely follows a perfect schedule. Describing changes or surprises is a very natural part of daily conversation. For example, my plan for the afternoon changed unexpectedly today. I originally intended to finish some work, but I received a message from a friend who wanted to meet for coffee. At first I hesitated, but then I decided a short break might actually be helpful, and it turned out to be a really enjoyable conversation. In this story, we see planning, change, decision, and result. That structure creates a natural narrative flow. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. Did your plans change at any point during this day? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Yes, my plans changed slightly in the afternoon. I thought I would spend the entire time working, but I suddenly realized I needed a break. So I stepped outside for a short walk, and that small change helped me feel refreshed and more focused afterward." Talking about changes in plans helps your English sound more flexible and realistic. Now let's explore another important skill: describing moments of reflection during the day. Sometimes, during a quiet moment, we stop and think about our progress, our goals, or our experiences. Being able to describe those reflective moments is a powerful communication skill. For example, at one point today, I paused for a few minutes and thought about how much progress I had made recently. It was one of those quiet moments where you suddenly realize that small daily efforts are slowly creating bigger results. This type of sentence adds depth to your conversation, and it shows your ability to express thoughtful ideas in English. Let's say, practice this skill together now. Think about this question. Did you have any quiet moment today when you stopped and reflected on something? Take a moment and answer slowly. Here is an example response. Yes, I actually had a quiet moment during the evening. After finishing everything I needed to do, I sat down and thought about how the day had gone. It made me realize that even though the day was busy, I had still managed to stay focused and positive. Moments like this make your speech sound calm, reflective, and mature. Now let's move on to another very common topic, talking about energy and motivation during the day. Energy changes naturally as the day moves forward, and describing those changes is a great way to practice advanced English. For example, my motivation was quite strong in the morning. I felt ready to start working and accomplish several things, but around mid-afternoon, my energy started to drop a little. So I decided to step away from my desk for a short break. That pause helped me recover my concentration. When you explain changes like this, your story becomes more realistic and relatable. Let's practice together again. Think about this question. When did you feel the most motivated today? Pause and try answering aloud. You might say, I felt most motivated earlier in the day, probably during the late morning. That's when my mind felt clear and focused, so I used that time to work on tasks that required more concentration. This kind of explanation shows awareness of your own productivity, something people often discuss in conversations about daily life. Now let's practice describing a small moment of enjoyment during the day. Even during busy days, there are often small moments that bring comfort or happiness. For example, one small moment that I really enjoyed today happened during a short break. I stepped outside for a few minutes and noticed how pleasant the weather was. The fresh air and sunlight created a peaceful atmosphere, and for a moment, everything felt very calm. This type of description helps you paint a sensory picture, which makes your English sound more vivid. Now let's do a longer speaking exercise together. Imagine someone asking you this question. If you had to tell a short story about your day, what would you say? Here is an example answer you can learn from. Today felt like a day of gradual progress. In the morning, I focused on organizing several tasks that needed attention. At first, it seemed like there was too much to do, but step by step, I began completing each task. By the afternoon, I started feeling more confident that everything would work out, and by the evening, I realized the day had actually been quite successful. This type of story structure is very common in real conversations: beginning, challenge, effort, and result. Now it's your turn. Take a moment and answer this question aloud. What kind of story would you tell about your day today? Remember, speaking slowly and clearly is much more valuable than speaking quickly. Fluency grows when your thoughts flow naturally, not when you rush your words. So allow your sentences to develop calmly and focus on expressing your experience honestly. Because every time you describe your day in English, you are strengthening your ability to communicate real ideas, real emotions, and real experiences. And that is exactly what true fluency is about. keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep sharing your daily stories in English, because every conversation begins with something simple, like talking about your day. Let's continue moving deeper into the skill of describing your day in a way that feels natural and expressive, because in real conversations, people often talk about the rhythm of their day, the pace, the moments when things moved quickly, and the moments when everything slowed down. Being able to explain that rhythm makes your English sound much more fluent and thoughtful. Imagine someone asking you a question like, "Did your day feel fast or slow today?" At first, this may seem like a simple question, but it actually gives you a great opportunity to describe how different parts of your day felt. For example, you might say something like this: "Interestingly, the day felt slow at the beginning, but much faster later on. The morning seemed to move gradually because I was carefully working through several tasks, but once the afternoon arrived, everything started happening more quickly, and before I realized it, the evening had already come." This kind of description helps listeners feel the passage of time in your story. Now let's practice together. Think about this question. Which part of your day passed the fastest? Pause for a moment and answer aloud. You might say something like, "The afternoon passed the fastest for me today. I was so focused on what I was doing that I completely lost track of time. When I finally looked at the clock, I was surprised to see how late it had become." When you speak like this, you are showing awareness of time and experience, which is very common in everyday conversations. Now let's explore another natural way people talk about their day, describing moments when they felt particularly focused or in the flow. Sometimes, when we are deeply involved in something, time seems to disappear, and hours pass very quickly. For example, there was a moment earlier today when I became completely absorbed in what I was doing. I was concentrating so deeply that I forgot about everything else around me. Those moments are always interesting because they remind me how powerful focus can be. This kind of explanation helps you express not only actions, but also mental states. Let's practice a speaking exercise together. Think about this question. Did you have a moment today when you felt completely focused on something? Take a moment and answer slowly. Here is one possible example. Yes, there was a moment during the late morning when I felt completely focused. I was working on something that required careful attention, and once I became fully involved, it felt like nothing else existed. Those moments of concentration can be very satisfying. Now let's explore another useful skill, describing the atmosphere around you during the day. Atmosphere means the feeling or environment of a place, and describing it can make your English much more vivid. For example, the atmosphere this morning felt very calm and peaceful. The streets were quiet. The air was cool, and everything seemed to move at a gentle pace. It was the kind of morning that makes you feel relaxed before the day really begins. Notice how the speaker describes the environment, not just the actions. Let's practice this together. Think about your surroundings earlier today. answer this question aloud. What was the atmosphere like during your morning? You might say something like, "The atmosphere during my morning was quite calm. There wasn't much noise around me, and everything felt organized and peaceful. That kind of environment helped me begin the day with a clear mind." Describing atmosphere helps your listener imagine the scene more clearly. Now let's talk about another interesting part of daily conversation, describing small decisions you made during the day. Every day we make many decisions, some small, some important, and talking about them helps build a natural narrative. For example, at one point today, I had to decide whether to continue working or take a short break. I realized my concentration was starting to fade, so I chose to step away for a few minutes. That small decision actually helped me return with more energy. This type of explanation shows reasoning, which is a strong communication skill at higher English levels. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. What was one small decision you made today? Pause and answer aloud. Here is an example response. One small decision I made today was choosing to organize my tasks more carefully. Instead of trying to do everything at once, I decided to focus on one thing at a time. That approach made the day feel much more manageable. Talking about decisions makes your story feel thoughtful and realistic. Now let's explore something that often appears in conversations about daily life. Talking about moments of learning. Every day, even ordinary days, can teach us something new. For example, one thing I learned today was the importance of patience. There was a moment when I felt slightly frustrated because something wasn't working the way I expected. But after slowing down and trying again, I realized the solution was simpler than I had thought. Describing learning moments adds depth to your story. Let's practice this together. Think about this question. Did you learn something small or interesting today? Take a moment and answer slowly. You might say something like, "Yes, I actually learned something simple but useful today. I discovered a new way to organize my work more efficiently. It may seem like a small improvement, but it made the entire process smoother." This type of explanation shows personal growth, which is often part of meaningful conversations. Now let's move to another common topic. Describing moments when you paused and noticed something around you. Sometimes the most memorable parts of a day are small observations. For example, while I was walking outside today, I noticed how quiet everything felt. The sky looked unusually clear, and there was a gentle breeze in the air. It was one of those moments that makes you slow down and appreciate your surroundings. Descriptions like this make your English more vivid and sensory. Let's do a speaking practice together. Think about this question. What is one small thing you noticed today? Pause and answer aloud. Here is one possible response. One small thing I noticed today was how peaceful the afternoon felt. The sunlight coming through the window created a warm atmosphere, and for a moment, everything seemed calm and balanced. When you learn to describe small observations, Your English becomes more expressive and natural. Now let's practice a longer reflection about the entire day. Listen carefully to this example. When I look back at the day as a whole, it feels like a mixture of effort and quiet moments. There were times when I had to focus carefully and push myself to complete tasks. But there were also short breaks that allowed me to breathe and reflect. That balance made the day feel meaningful rather than exhausting. This type of reflection is common when people talk about their day in a thoughtful conversation. Now it's your turn to practice. Think about this question. If you had to reflect on the day, what would you say about it? Take a moment and answer slowly and clearly. Remember, speaking English fluently is not about using complicated words. It is about expressing real experiences in a clear and natural way. The more you practice describing your day, your thoughts, and your observations, the more comfortable English will begin to feel. Your mind will gradually learn how to organize experiences into sentences, and those sentences will begin to flow naturally. So keep practicing, keep observing your day, and keep sharing your experiences in English, because every ordinary day holds a story worth telling. And every story you tell brings you closer to confident English fluency. Let's continue developing the ability to talk about your day with more detail and clarity, because when people share their daily experiences in English, they often describe not only what they did, but also how certain moments felt internally, the thoughts that passed through their mind, and the small reflections that appeared during the day. Being able to express those thoughts helps your English sound more natural and more advanced. Imagine someone asking you, "What were you thinking about during the day today?" At first, this might sound like a deep question, but it actually appears quite often in conversations between friends or colleagues, because people are naturally curious about what others are experiencing mentally. For example, you might say something like this: "During the morning, I found myself thinking a lot about the tasks I wanted to finish before the end of the week. I was trying to organize my priorities in my mind and decide which things needed attention first. That process of planning helped me feel more focused once I started working." This type of answer shows internal thinking, which is a strong communication skill at higher English levels. Now let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. What was on your mind earlier today? Pause for a moment and try answering aloud. You might say something like, "Earlier today, I was thinking about how to manage my time more effectively. I realized there were several small tasks waiting for me, and I wanted to approach them in a more organized way. So I spent a few minutes planning the order in which I would complete them." Explaining thoughts like this adds depth to your description of the day. Now let's explore another very common part of talking about daily life: describing transitions between activities. Our days are full of transitions, moving from one task to another, from work to rest, from focus to relaxation, and explaining those transitions makes your story flow naturally. For example, after finishing my morning tasks, I decided to take a short break before starting the next part of my work. I stepped away from my desk, stretched a little, and allowed my mind to reset. That short pause made it easier to continue later. Notice how the speaker clearly describes the shift between activities. Let's practice this together. Think about this question. What did you do right after finishing your main task today? Pause and answer aloud. Here is an example response. Right after finishing my main task today, I allowed myself a few minutes to relax. I made a cup of tea and looked outside the window. That brief moment helped me feel refreshed before continuing with our other responsibilities. Talking about transitions helps your speech feel smooth and connected. Now let's explore something that often happens during this day. Moments of distraction. Everyone experiences times when their attention moves away from what they are doing, and describing that moment is a very natural part of conversation. For example, at one point during the afternoon, I noticed my concentration beginning to fade. My mind kept wandering toward other thoughts, so I realized it might be a good idea to step away for a few minutes. After a short break, I was able to return with better focus. This explanation shows awareness of your mental state, which adds realism to your story. Let's practice this together. Think about this question. Did you experience any distractions today? Pause and answer aloud. I might say something like, yes. There was a moment during the afternoon when I felt slightly distracted. I had been working for a long time without a break, so my attention started drifting. Once I stepped away for a short walk, my focus returned. Explaining distraction and recovery is a natural way to describe daily experiences. Now let's talk about another interesting part of daily conversations. Describing motivation. Sometimes during the day, we feel motivated and energetic, and other times our motivation becomes weaker. Being able to describe those changes helps you sound more expressive in English. For example, my motivation was strongest earlier in the day, especially during the late morning. That was when I felt most productive and confident about the work I was doing. Later in the afternoon, my energy dropped slightly, but I managed to maintain steady progress. This type of explanation shows awareness of personal productivity. Let's practice again together. Think about this question. When did you feel most productive today? Pause and answer slowly. Here is one possible example. I felt most productive during the late morning. That period of the day always seems to be when my mind is clearest. So I try to complete my most important tasks during that time. Speaking about productivity is very common in conversations about daily routines. Now, let's explore something else that adds personality to your story. Describing small moments of enjoyment. Sometimes the best part of the day is something simple and unexpected. For example, one small moment that I really appreciated today happened during a quiet break. I stepped outside and I noticed how comfortable the weather felt. The fresh air and calm surroundings created a peaceful moment that helped me reset my energy. Descriptions like this make your speech feel warm and vivid. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What was a small moment today that you enjoyed? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, a small moment I enjoyed today happened when I finally finished something I had been working on for a while. That sense of completion brought a quiet feeling of satisfaction. Now let's move into a slightly deeper type of reflection, describing what your day taught you. Even ordinary days can teach us something valuable. For example, today reminded me that progress often happens through small, consistent steps. Even though none of the tasks felt extremely dramatic or exciting, completing them one by one gradually created a sense of accomplishment. This type of reflection adds maturity to your conversation. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. What did today teach you? Pause and answer slowly. Here is one example. Today taught me that patience is often necessary when working toward a goal. Some things take longer than expected, but steady effort usually leads to progress. Speaking about lessons learned helps your English sound thoughtful and reflective. Now let's practice describing the emotional tone of the evening. Evenings often feel different from mornings because they carry the feeling of completion or reflection. For example, as the evening arrived, I began to feel more relaxed. The pressure of the day gradually faded, and I allowed myself to slow down and reflect on everything that had happened. Descriptions like this help listeners feel the atmosphere of the day ending. Now it's your turn to practice. Think about this question. How did you feel as the evening approached today? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, as the evening approached, I started feeling calmer and more relaxed. It was nice to know that most of my responsibilities for the day had already been completed. Now let's finish this section with a longer reflection about the entire experience of the day. Listen carefully to this example. When I look back at today, it feels like a day filled with steady progress and small, meaningful moments. There were times when I had to concentrate deeply, and other moments when I allowed myself to pause and breathe. That balance between effort and reflection made the day feel rewarding. This type of reflection shows emotional awareness, which is a powerful communication skill at higher levels of English. Now take a moment and answer this final question aloud. If you had to describe the feeling of your day in one short story, what would you say? Speak slowly, clearly, and confidently. Remember, fluency grows when your thoughts move naturally from one idea to another. And the more you practice describing your experiences, your thoughts, and your emotions in English, the more comfortable speaking will become. Every day gives you a new story to tell. And every story you tell strengthens your confidence in English. So keep observing your day, keep reflecting on your experiences, and keep speaking your thoughts aloud. Because real fluency is built through real stories from everyday life. Let's continue exploring another important skill when talking about your day in English. Learning how to describe the flow of events in a clear and natural sequence. Because when people share their experiences, They often move step by step through what happened, explaining how one moment led to another. This storytelling style helps the listener easily follow your thoughts and imagine the events of your day. Imagine someone asking you, "What happened after that?" This simple question appears very often in conversations, especially when someone is interested in your story. Being able to continue your explanation naturally is an important part of fluent communication. For example, you might say something like this: "After finishing the first task of the day, I took a moment to review what still needed to be done. I realized there were several smaller tasks that could be completed quickly, so I decided to start with those. That strategy helped me build momentum for the rest of the day." Notice how the speaker connects actions using phrases like, "After finishing, I realized, and so I decided." These connectors help the story move forward smoothly. Now let's practice this skill together. Think about this question. What happened after you completed your first activity today? Pause for a moment and answer aloud. You might say something like, "After completing my first activity today, I took a short moment to relax. I wanted to clear my mind before moving on to the next task. That brief pause helped me feel more prepared for what came next." This type of answer shows a clear sequence of events. Now let's explore another useful technique, describing how your day gradually developed. Many days do not follow a dramatic pattern. Instead, they unfold gradually with small steps of progress. For example, the day developed quite naturally. I began with a simple plan of what I wanted to accomplish. As the hours passed, I slowly moved through each responsibility. Some tasks required more attention than others, but overall the day progressed smoothly. This kind of description creates a calm and balanced narrative. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. How did your day gradually unfold? Pause and answer aloud. Here is an example response. My day unfolded quite steadily. I started with a clear list of things I needed to complete. As I worked through them one by one, I began to feel more confident that everything would be finished on time. Explaining the development of your day helps listeners understand the overall structure of your experience. Now let's talk about another very natural part of daily conversation: describing moments of surprise. Sometimes something unexpected happens during this day, and those moments often become the most interesting part of your story. For example, there was a small moment of surprise during the afternoon. I received a message from someone I hadn't spoken with in a long time. The conversation that followed brought back many memories, and it turned into one of the most pleasant moments of the day. This kind of explanation adds emotion and personality to your speech. Let's practice this together. Think about this question. Did anything unexpected happen today? Pause and answer. Aloud, you might say something like, "Yes, something unexpected did happen today. I suddenly realized that I had finished more tasks than I originally planned. That small surprise made me feel quite satisfied with the day's progress." Describing surprises helps make your stories more engaging. Now let's explore another important aspect of talking about your day: describing your environment and surroundings. When you describe the setting around you, the listener can imagine the scene more clearly. For example, the environment around me today felt calm and organized. The space where I was working was quiet, which made it easier to concentrate. Occasionally I could hear soft background sounds from outside, but overall the atmosphere remained peaceful. Descriptions like this create a vivid image in the listener's mind. Let's practice this together. Think about this question. What was the environment around you like during your work or study today? Pause and answer slowly. Here is an example response. The environment around me today was quite comfortable. There were very few distractions, and the calm atmosphere helped me stay focused on what I needed to do. Talking about your environment adds richness to your story. Now let's move to another useful speaking skill: describing how your mood shifted during the day. Our mood often changes naturally depending on what we experience. For example, my mood shifted slightly throughout the day. In the beginning, I felt very motivated and eager to start. Later in the afternoon, I felt a little tired, but after a short break, my energy returned. By the evening, I felt calm and satisfied with what I had or accomplished. This type of explanation helps listeners understand your emotional journey. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. How did your mood change during the day? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, my mood began the day feeling optimistic. I was looking forward to completing several tasks. During the afternoon, I felt slightly tired, but the feeling passed once I had a chance to relax for a moment. Describing emotional changes makes your story more personal and expressive. Now let's explore another skill: describing the most meaningful moment of the day. Sometimes a day contains one particular moment that stands out more than the others. For example, the most meaningful moment of my day occurred when I finally completed something that had required a lot of effort. That moment brought a strong sense of relief and satisfaction because it represented the result of consistent work. Sharing meaningful moments makes conversations feel authentic and engaging. Let's practice this together. Think about this question. What moment today felt the most meaningful to you? Pause and answer slowly. Here is one possible example. The most meaningful moment today was when I realized that all my preparation had been worthwhile. Seeing the results of my effort made the entire day feel rewarding. Now let's move into a deeper reflection about daily life. Sometimes people talk about their day in a philosophical way, thinking about how ordinary moments shape our experiences. For example, days like today remind me that progress often happens quietly through small actions repeated over time. Even though nothing dramatic happened, the steady rhythm of work and reflection created a sense of fulfillment. This kind of reflection shows maturity and thoughtful communication. Let's practice one final speaking exercise in this section. Think about this question carefully. If someone asked you to describe the story of your day from beginning to end, what would you say? Pause and answer slowly. Allow your thoughts to flow naturally from one moment to the next. Remember, speaking fluently is not about perfection. It is about expressing real experiences clearly and honestly. Every time you practice describing your day, your brain becomes more comfortable forming sentences in English. Your thoughts begin to organize themselves more easily, and your words begin to flow more naturally. So continue observing the small details of your daily life. Continue reflecting on your experiences and continue sharing those stories aloud. Because every ordinary day contains many moments worth describing. And every moment you describe in English helps build your confidence and fluency. Let's continue developing another important part of speaking about your day. Learning how to describe routines and repeated experiences. Because when people talk about daily life, they often compare what happened today with what usually happens on other days. This type of explanation helps listeners understand your habits and your lifestyle more clearly. Imagine someone asking you, "Was today a typical day for you?" This question invites you to compare your normal routine with what happened today. And comparison is a very useful communication skill at higher levels of English. For example, you might answer like this. Today was fairly typical for me. My morning followed the same routine I usually have. I woke up, prepared breakfast, and spent some time planning the day ahead. The only difference was that the afternoon felt a little busier than usual. But overall, the day followed a familiar rhythm. Notice how the speaker uses words like usually, typical, and difference. These words help show comparison between normal habits and today's experience. Now let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. Was today similar to your usual routine? Pause for a moment and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Yes. Today was quite similar to my usual routine. I began the morning with the same activities I normally do, which helped me feel organized and ready for the rest of the day." Explaining routines helps make your story easier to understand. Now let's explore another important skill. Describing how you balance work and rest during the day. Many conversations about daily life involve discussing how people manage their time and energy. For example, throughout the day I tried to maintain a balance between working and taking short breaks. After concentrating for a while, I would pause briefly to stretch or relax. Those small breaks helped keep my energy steady and prevented me from feeling overwhelmed. This explanation shows awareness of personal habits and productivity. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. How did you balance work and rest today? Pause and answer slowly. Here is an example response. I tried to balance my work and rest by focusing on one task at a time and then allowing myself a short pause before beginning the next one. That rhythm helped me stay productive without feeling exhausted. Talking about balance is very common in conversations about daily routines. Now let's explore another natural part of daily storytelling, describing moments of curiosity. Sometimes during the day, something catches your attention and makes you curious or interested. For example, at one point today, I noticed some things that made me curious. I came across an idea that I hadn't thought about before, and it made me pause for a moment and consider it more carefully. These small moments of curiosity can make your story feel more engaging. Let's practice together. Think about this question. Did anything make you curious today? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Yes, something small made me curious today. I heard someone discussing an interesting topic, and it made me want to learn more about it later." Moments of curiosity often lead to learning or reflection. Now let's explore another important element of describing your day, explaining how you handled pressure or responsibility. Many days involve responsibilities that require effort and focus. For example, there was a moment during the day when I felt the pressure of several responsibilities at once. Instead of becoming stressed, I tried to approach each task calmly and methodically. That mindset helped me maintain control of the situation. Describing how you handle pressure shows confidence and maturity in your communication. Let's practice together. Think about this question. How did you handle the responsibilities of the day? Pause and answer slowly. Here is one example response. I handled my responsibilities by focusing on one task at a time. When everything seemed overwhelming, I reminded myself to stay calm and move step by step. This kind of explanation reflects real-life problem solving. Now let's explore another interesting aspect of daily life, describing moments when you slowed down and became more aware of your surroundings. Sometimes the most memorable parts of a day are quiet observations. For example, during a short break today, I took a moment to look around and notice the environment. The light coming through the window created a calm atmosphere, and for a few minutes I simply enjoyed that peaceful moment. Descriptions like this help listeners imagine the scene clearly. Let's practice. I together. Think about this question. Did you have a moment today when you slowed down and noticed something around you? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Yes, there was a moment when I slowed down and simply observed what was happening around me. It was a brief pause, but it helped me feel more present and relaxed." These moments of awareness add depth to your story. Now let's talk about something that many people reflect on at the end of the day, evaluating how productive the day was. People often ask themselves, was today a productive day? For example, when I think about the day as a whole, I would say it was fairly productive. I managed to complete several tasks that have been waiting for my attention, and even though there were a few minor challenges, the overall progress felt satisfying. This kind of evaluation is very common in conversations about work or daily responsibilities. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. Would you consider today a productive day? Pause and answer slowly. Here is an example response. Yes, I would consider today productive. I focused on the tasks that mattered most, and by the evening I felt that my time had been used well. Talking about productivity helps summarize your experience. Now let's explore another skill. Describing what you might do differently tomorrow. Reflecting on the future often appears at the end of conversations about daily life. For example, looking ahead to tomorrow, I might approach the day slightly differently. I would probably begin by organizing my priorities more clearly so that I can use my time more efficiently. This kind of reflection shows planning and self-awareness. Let's practice together. Think about this question. If you could change one thing about how you spent your day, what would it be? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, if I could change one thing, I might allow myself a little more time to relax during the afternoon. A short break can sometimes improve concentration for the rest of the day. Now let's finish this section with a deeper reflection about daily life and progress. Listen carefully to this example. When I reflect on the day, I realize that progress often happens quietly, through small efforts repeated over time. Even though each individual task might seem simple, together they create meaningful movement toward larger goals. This type of reflection adds wisdom and perspective to your speech. Now take a moment and answer this question aloud. What does a day like today remind you about life or progress? Speak slowly, clearly, and thoughtfully. Remember, when you talk about your day in English, you are not only describing events, you are sharing experiences, observations, and lessons. The more you practice expressing those ideas, the more natural your English will become. Every day gives you another opportunity to speak, reflect, and grow in confidence. So continue telling the story of your day, one sentence at a time, because every sentence brings you closer to true fluency. Let's continue strengthening your ability to talk about your day by focusing on another important aspect of daily conversations. Describing how different moments of the day influence your mindset or perspective. Because when people speak at a B2 or C1 level, they often connect experiences with thoughts and reflections. This helps their speech sound more meaningful and natural. Imagine someone asking you a thoughtful question like, "Did today give you any new ideas?" This kind of question invites you to reflect on your experiences and explain how certain moments influenced your thinking. For example, you might say something like this. "Actually, today did give me a new idea. While I was working on something in the afternoon, I suddenly realized there might be a better way to approach it. That realization made me feel curious and motivated to explore the idea further." Notice how the speaker connects an event with a new thought. This type of explanation shows deeper communication skills. Now let's practice this. Together. Think about this question. Did anything today make you think differently about something? Pause for a moment and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Yes, something today made me reconsider how I organize my time. I realized that planning ahead more carefully could help reduce unnecessary stress. This type of reflection shows growth and awareness. Now let's explore another common topic in conversations about daily life. Describing moments when you felt grateful or appreciative. Gratitude often appears when people reflect on their day, especially when something positive happens. For example, at one point today, I felt genuinely grateful for a quiet moment that allowed me to relax and breathe. Sometimes the busiest days remind us how valuable even a few minutes of calm can be. Expressions of gratitude add warmth and sincerity to your speech. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What is one thing from today that you feel grateful for? Pause and answer slowly. You might say something like, "One thing I feel grateful for today is the opportunity to focus on my work without too many interruptions. That peaceful environment helped me accomplish more than I expected." Talking about gratitude helps your English sound positive and thoughtful. Now let's move to another natural aspect of daily storytelling, describing moments of creativity or inspiration. Sometimes during the day, an idea appears unexpectedly, and it can influence your mood or motivation. For example, during the afternoon, I experienced a small moment of inspiration while thinking about something I had been working on. A new idea suddenly came to mind. It felt exciting to explore a different perspective. This kind of explanation adds energy and imagination to your speech. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. Did you feel inspired by anything today? Pause and answer aloud. Here is an example response. Yes, I felt inspired during a conversation earlier today. Someone shared an idea that made me look at a situation in a new way. It reminded me how valuable fresh perspectives can be. Moments of inspiration often become meaningful parts of our daily stories. Now let's explore another useful speaking skill, describing the pace of your thoughts during the day. Sometimes our thoughts move quickly, and sometimes they slow down. Being able to describe that experience can make your English sound more expressive. For example, earlier in this day, my thoughts were moving very quickly. I had many ideas and responsibilities on my mind, but later, when the evening arrived, everything seemed to slow down, and my thoughts became calmer and more reflective. This kind of description adds emotional depth to your story. Let's practice this together. Think about this question. How did your thoughts change throughout the day? Pause and answer slowly. You might say something like, "My thoughts were quite active during the morning because I was planning several things at once. But later in the day, I felt more relaxed and reflective." Explaining mental changes helps listeners understand your experience more clearly. Now let's talk about something many people reflect on during the evening: the idea of progress. When people think about their day, they often ask themselves whether they moved forward toward their goals. For example, when I think about the day as a whole, I feel that I made steady progress. Even though none of the tasks were dramatic or exciting, completing them gradually created a strong sense of accomplishment. This type of reflection is very common in discussions about productivity and personal growth. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. What kind of progress did you make today? Pause and answer aloud. Here is an example response. Today I made progress by focusing on the tasks that required the most attention. Each small step moved me closer to completing my goals. Talking about progress gives your story a clear purpose. Now let's explore another interesting part of daily conversations. Describing how and certain moments influenced your mood. For example, there was a moment today when a simple event improved my mood unexpectedly. A short conversation with someone brought a sense of encouragement that stayed with me for the rest of the day. Moments like this make daily experiences feel meaningful. Let's practice together. Think about this question. Did anything today improve your mood? Pause and answer slowly. You might say something like, yes, something small improved my mood today. Finishing an important task brought a sense of relief and satisfaction. Talking about emotional changes helps listeners connect with your story. Now let's explore another useful skill. Describing how you ended your day. Evenings often feel different from earlier parts of the day because they bring reflection and closure. For example, as the evening arrived, I allowed myself to slow down and reflect on everything that had happened. The quiet atmosphere made it easier to appreciate the progress I had made during the day. This kind of explanation creates a peaceful ending to your story. Let's practice together. Think about this question. How did your day come to an end? Pause and answer aloud. Here is one possible example. My day ended quietly. I took some time to relax and think about what I had accomplished. That moment of reflection helped me feel calm and satisfied. Describing how your day ends is a natural way to complete your story. Now let's finish this section with a deeper reflection about the meaning of daily experiences. Listen carefully to this example. Days like today remind me that life is often built from small moments, and rather than dramatic events, a quiet morning, steady work, meaningful conversations, and moments of reflection all combine to create a fulfilling experience. This type of reflection shows emotional awareness and maturity in communication. Now, take a moment and answer this final question aloud. What kind of meaning did your day have for you? Speak slowly, clearly, and thoughtfully. Remember, describing your day in English is more than a language exercise. It is a way of sharing your experiences and thoughts with others. Every sentence you speak strengthens your ability to express yourself naturally. And every story you tell about your day builds confidence in your English communication. So continue practicing, continue reflecting, and continue sharing your daily experiences, because the simple story of your day can become a powerful path toward fluency. Let's continue exploring how to talk about your day in a deeper and more engaging way. Because when conversations become more meaningful, people often begin to connect their daily experiences with their personal goals, their priorities, and the direction they want their life to move in. This type of reflection helps your English sound thoughtful and mature, which is exactly what we want to develop at a B2 or C1 level. Imagine someone asking you a question like, "Did today move you closer to something important?" At first, this question may sound philosophical, but in real conversations, people often talk about progress toward their goals, even when that progress happens slowly or quietly. For example, you might say something like this: "In a small way, today did move me closer to something important. I spent time working on tasks that contribute to a larger goal, even though each individual step seemed small. Together, they created a sense of forward movement." This kind of answer shows awareness of long-term progress. Now let's practice together. Think about this question. Did anything you did today help you move forward in some way? Pause for a moment and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Yes, something I worked on today did help me move forward. I spent time focusing on something that required patience, and even though progress was gradual, I could see improvement." Talking about progress toward goals makes your story feel purposeful. Now let's explore another natural part of daily conversations: describing moments when you felt proud of something you did. Pride in this context means a quiet and satisfaction that comes from effort or achievement. For example, there was a moment today when I felt quietly proud of myself. I had been working on something challenging, and after several attempts, I finally managed to complete it successfully. That moment made the effort feel worthwhile. Describing pride adds emotional depth to your story. Let's practice together. Think about this question. Was there anything today that made you feel proud of your effort? Pause and answer slowly. Here is one example response. Yes. Finishing a task that required patience made me feel proud today. It reminded me that persistence can lead to meaningful results. Moments of pride help listeners understand what matters to you. Now let's explore another interesting aspect of daily life: describing how conversations with other people influenced your day. Sometimes a simple conversation can change your perspective or improve your mood. For example, a conversation I had today turned out to be more meaningful than I expected. It began as a simple exchange of ideas, but it gradually became a thoughtful discussion that gave me new insights. Describing conversations helps bring your daily story to life. Let's practice together. Think about this question. Did a conversation today influence the way you thought about something? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Yes, a conversation today helped me see something from a different perspective. Listening to another person's viewpoint made me reconsider my own ideas." This type of explanation shows open-minded thinking. Now let's explore another natural topic in conversations about daily life: describing moments of patience. Many days require patience, especially when things take longer than expected. For example, there was a moment today when patience became very important. Something I was working on required careful attention, and rushing the process would have created mistakes. So I reminded myself to slow down and remain calm. Talking about patience demonstrates emotional awareness and self-control. Let's practice together. Think about this question. When did you need patience during your day? Pause and answer slowly. Here is one possible example. I needed patience earlier today while solving a small problem. It took several attempts before I found the right solution, but staying calm helped me eventually succeed. Moments like this make your story realistic and relatable. Now let's explore another useful speaking skill, describing moments when your perspective changed. Sometimes during the day, something happens that causes you to rethink your assumptions. For example, at one point today, I realized that my original approach to something wasn't the most effective. That realization helped me adjust my strategy and continue with better results. This kind of explanation shows adaptability and growth. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. Did you change your approach to something today? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, yes, I changed my approach to a task after realizing there might be a more efficient way to handle it. That adjustment made the process smoother. Now let's explore another meaningful part of daily reflection, describing moments of appreciation for simple things. Sometimes the most meaningful experiences are very simple. For example, during a quiet moment today, I appreciated how peaceful the environment felt. The simple atmosphere allowed me to relax and think clearly. Descriptions like this help your speech sound calm and reflective. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What simple thing did you appreciate today? Pause and answer slowly. Here is an example response. I appreciated the calm atmosphere around me today. Having a peaceful environment made it easier to focus and think clearly. Appreciating small things adds warmth to your story. Now let's move toward a deeper reflection about the overall meaning of the day. When people summarize their day, they often describe the lesson or realization that came from their new experiences. For example, looking back at today, I realized that steady effort and patience often lead to quiet progress. Even when the day seems ordinary, small actions can create meaningful results. This type of reflection shows maturity and awareness. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What realization did you have after reflecting on your day? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, after reflecting on my day, I realized that consistency is often more important than speed. Taking steady steps can lead to real progress. Now let's finish this section with a thoughtful reflection about daily life and growth. Listen carefully to this example. When we talk about our day, we are really describing the small pieces of our lives. Each decision, each effort, and each moment of a reflection gradually shapes who we become. Even the simplest day can contain lessons and experiences that help us grow. Now take a moment and answer this question aloud. If someone asked you what today contributed to your life, what would you say? Speak slowly, clearly, and thoughtfully. Remember, Describing your day is not just about language practice. It is about expressing your experiences and understanding your own journey. Every story you share helps build your confidence in English, and every reflection strengthens your ability to communicate your thoughts naturally. So keep observing your daily experiences. Keep reflecting on their meaning, and keep sharing those stories in English. Because the story of your day is always worth telling. Let's continue exploring another powerful way to talk about your day. Learning how to describe the feelings and reflections that appear when you slow down and think about everything that happened. Because in many real conversations, people don't only list events, they also describe what those events meant to them and how those experiences influence their perspective. Imagine someone asking you a question like, when you think back on today, what stands out the most? This type of question invites you to choose one moment or experience that felt important or memorable. For example, you might say something like this. When I think back on today, the moment that stands out most is when I finally finished something I had been working on for quite a while. It wasn't a dramatic moment, but the quiet satisfaction of completing it made the entire day feel worthwhile. Notice how the speaker focuses on a single meaningful experience. This kind of answer helps your listener understand what mattered most during your day. Now let's practice together. Think about this question. What moment from today stands out in your memory? Pause for a moment and answer aloud. You might say something like, one moment that stands out from today happened when I realized I had made more progress than I expected. That realization gave me a sense of encouragement. Talking about memorable moments helps organize your story around important experiences. Now let's explore another natural way to talk about your day. Describing the emotional journey you experienced from morning to evening. For example, the emotional tone of my day changed gradually. In the morning, I felt focused and motivated. During the afternoon, I felt slightly tired, but still determined. And by the evening, I felt calm and satisfied with what I had accomplished. This type of explanation creates a clear emotional narrative. Let's practice together. Think about this question. How did your emotions change during the day? Pause and answer slowly. Here's an example response. My emotions shifted throughout the day. I began the morning feeling optimistic. Later in the afternoon, I felt a little overwhelmed. But by the evening I felt relaxed and relieved. Describing emotional changes helps listeners understand your experience more deeply. Now let's explore another interesting aspect of daily storytelling. Describing how you responded to challenges. Almost every day includes small challenges, and explaining how you handled them shows maturity in communication. For example, at one point, during the day, I faced a small challenge that required patience. Instead of becoming frustrated, I took a moment to think calmly about the situation. That pause allowed me to approach the problem more effectively. This type of explanation highlights problem-solving skills. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What challenge did you handle today? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, "One challenge I handled today involved managing several responsibilities at the same time. I solved it by focusing on one task at a time instead of trying to do everything at once." Describing how you handle challenges makes your story more realistic and inspiring. Now let's explore another meaningful part of reflecting on your day. Describing how your experiences affected your mindset. For example, by the end of the day, I noticed that my mindset had become more reflective. After spending hours focused on tasks and responsibilities, I appreciated the chance to pause and think about the progress I had made. This type of reflection shows emotional awareness. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this question. How did your mindset change by the end of the day? Pause and answer slowly. Here is one example. Response. By the end of the day, my mindset became calmer and more reflective. I began thinking about what I had accomplished and what I wanted to improve tomorrow. Talking about mindset helps express deeper personal experiences. Now let's explore another powerful speaking skill, describing the lessons that a day can teach you. Every day, even ordinary ones, can provide valuable insights. For example, one lesson today reminded me of the importance of staying consistent. Even when progress seems slow, continuing to make steady effort can lead to meaningful results. This type of reflection adds wisdom to your speech. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What lesson did today teach you? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Today taught me that patience often leads to better results. When I slowed down and focused carefully, the work became easier to manage." Describing lessons from your day makes your story meaningful. Now let's move into another common conversation topic. Imagining how tomorrow might be different. People often reflect on today while thinking about tomorrow. For example, as I think about tomorrow, I would like to approach the day with even more focus. I want to begin with a clear plan so that I can use my time more effectively. This type of forward thinking shows planning and motivation. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What would you like to do differently tomorrow? Pause and answer slowly. Here is an example response. Tomorrow I would like to organize my tasks earlier in the day. Having a clear plan from the beginning might help everything move more smoothly. Talking about the future connects today's experiences with tomorrow's possibilities. Now let's explore a deeper reflection about daily life itself. Sometimes, when people talk about their day, they begin to realize that even ordinary experiences have meaning. For example, days like today remind me that life is often built from small efforts and quiet moments. Each task completed, each conversation shared, and each reflection contributes to our personal growth. This type of reflection adds philosophical depth to your speech. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What does a day like today teach you about life? Pause and answer slowly. You might say something like, A day like today reminds me that patience and consistency are powerful qualities. Even small steps can lead to meaningful progress. Now let's finish this section with a thoughtful reflection that connects daily experiences with personal development. Listen carefully to this example. When we talk about our day, we are really describing the small building blocks of our lives. Every action, every decision, and every moment of reflection gradually shapes our path. Even the simplest day can bring insight if we take the time to notice it. Now take a moment and answer this question aloud. If you had to explain what today added to your life, what would you say? Speak slowly, clearly, and thoughtfully. Remember, talking about your day in English is not just a language exercise. It is a way of sharing your experiences and understanding your journey. Every time you describe your day, your ability to express ideas becomes stronger. Your confidence grows. Your thoughts become clearer. And your fluency becomes more natural. So continue telling the story of your day. Continue reflecting on your experiences. And continue practicing your English with curiosity and confidence. Because every day you live is another story you can tell in English. Let's continue exploring one more powerful way to talk about your day. Learning how to describe the meaning behind your experiences, because at a higher level of English, conversations often become more reflective. People don't only talk about what happened, they talk about what those moments meant to them and how those experiences shaped their thoughts by the end of the day. Imagine someone asking you a thoughtful question like, when you think about today, what feeling stays with you the most? This kind of question invites you to reflect on the emotional impact of your day. For example, you might answer like this. When I think about today, the feeling that stays with me the most is a quiet sense of satisfaction. The day was not extraordinary or dramatic, but completing several small tasks and staying focused throughout the day created a feeling of steady progress. Notice how this speaker focuses on the overall feeling rather than only describing events. Now let's practice together. Think about this question. What feeling best describes your day? Pause for a moment and answer aloud. You might say something like, the feeling that best describes my day is balance. I was able to focus on my responsibilities, but I also allowed myself moments of rest and reflection. Talking about feelings helps make your story more personal and authentic. Now let's explore another natural part of reflecting on your day, describing what gave you energy or motivation. For example, one thing that gave me energy today was the sense that I was moving forward. Even when tasks required effort, the progress I made helped maintain my motivation. Explaining what motivates you adds insight to your conversation. Let's practice this idea together. Think about this. Question. What gave you energy during your day? Pause and answer slowly. Here is an example response. What gave me energy today was seeing the results of my effort. Each completed task reminded me that steady work can lead to real progress. Describing motivation helps listeners understand your mindset. Now let's explore another important part of daily reflection, recognizing moments that helped you grow or learn. Every day contains opportunities for learning, even when the lessons are small. For example, looking back on today, I realized that one of the most valuable moments came when I had to adjust my approach to a task. That experience reminded me that flexibility and patience are important qualities. This type of reflection adds wisdom and perspective to your story. Let's practice together. Think about this. A question. What helped you grow or learn something today? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, a moment that helped me grow today occurred when I faced a small challenge. Instead of giving up, I kept trying until I found a solution. Talking about growth makes your story meaningful and inspiring. Now let's explore another useful speaking skill, describing how your day affected your outlook on tomorrow. People often reflect on their day while thinking about the future. For example, today made me realize that tomorrow is another opportunity to improve. Even though there are always things to learn, each day provides a chance to continue progressing. This type of reflection connects present experiences with future possibilities. Let's practice together. Think about this question. How did today influence the way you think about tomorrow? Pause and answer slowly. Here is an example response. Today reminded me that preparation can make a big difference. Because of what I learned today, I will approach tomorrow with clearer priorities. Talking about the future shows awareness and planning. Now let's explore a deeper reflection about daily life, something that many people realize after thinking about their day carefully. Often, the most meaningful parts of our lives are built through small actions repeated over time. For example, when I reflect on today, I realize that meaningful progress rarely happens all at once. Instead, it grows slowly through consistent effort and thoughtful choices. This kind of reflection brings depth to your communication. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What does today remind you about how progress works? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, today reminds me that progress is often quiet and gradual. Each small effort contributes to something larger over time. Describing insights like this makes your English sound thoughtful and mature. Now let's move toward a final reflection about your day as a complete experience. When people finish describing their day, they often summarize what the day meant to them emotionally and mentally. For example, if I had to describe today in one sentence, I would say it was a day of steady effort and quiet satisfaction. There were challenges and moments of reflection, but overall the experience felt meaningful and balanced. This type of summary brings closure to your story. Let's practice together. Think about this. Question. If you had to summarize your day in one thought, what would you say? Pause and answer slowly. Here is an example response. If I had to summarize my day, I would say it was a day that reminded me of the value of patience and consistency. Now let's take a moment for a deeper reflection that connects your daily experiences with personal growth. Listen carefully to this example. When we describe our day, we are actually describing the small moments that shape our lives. Every decision we make, every effort we invest, and every lesson we learn gradually builds the person we become. Now take a moment and answer this question aloud. What kind of story would you tell someone about the day you lived today? Speak slowly, clearly, and thoughtfully. Remember, your story does not need to be dramatic or extraordinary. Even the simplest day contains meaningful experiences when you take the time to notice them. And every time you describe those experiences in English, your ability to communicate becomes stronger. Your vocabulary grows, your confidence increases, and your fluency develops naturally. So continue observing your days, continue reflecting on what they teach you, and continue sharing those stories in English. Because every day of your life is a chapter in your story. And every chapter is another opportunity to practice speaking English with clarity and confidence. Let's continue reflecting on the idea that every day we live contains a collection of moments. Some simple, some challenging, and some quietly meaningful. When we learn to describe those moments clearly in English, we begin to express not only events, but also understanding, perspective, and personal growth. Sometimes, when people reach the end of a long day, they naturally begin asking themselves a simple question. What kind of day was it? That question invites reflection, because the answer is rarely just one word. Instead, it becomes a small story about effort, experience, and meaning. For example, you might say something like this. If I think carefully about today, I would describe it as a day of steady effort. It wasn't filled with dramatic moments, but it was full of small actions that slowly moved things forward. And by the evening, that steady progress created a quiet sense of satisfaction. Notice how the speaker describes the overall character of the day, not only the events. Now let's practice together. Think about this question. If someone asked you what kind of day you had, how would you describe it? Pause for a moment and answer aloud. You might say something like, I would describe today as a thoughtful and productive day. I spent time focusing on my responsibilities, but I also allowed myself moments to pause and reflect. This kind of response helps summarize the entire experience of the day. Now let's explore another meaningful part of reflection, recognizing the value of ordinary moments. Many people believe that important days must contain big events, but in reality, ordinary days often hold the most valuable experiences. For example, when I look back on today, I realized that the most meaningful parts were actually very simple. A quiet moment of concentration, a calm conversation, and the feeling of completing something that required effort. These small experiences gave the day its value. This type of reflection shows appreciation for everyday life. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What ordinary moment today felt meaningful to you? Pause and answer slowly. Here is an example response. One ordinary moment that felt meaningful today was when I paused to appreciate the calm atmosphere around me. That quiet moment helped me reset my thoughts. Describing ordinary moments helps your speech sound genuine and thoughtful. Now let's explore another powerful reflection. Understanding how each day contributes to long-term growth. Life is not shaped by one single day, but by the combination of many days filled with effort and learning. For example, when I think about today as part of a larger journey, I realize that every small step matters. Even though the tasks I completed today seemed ordinary, they still contributed to long-term progress. This kind of reflection connects daily actions with bigger goals. Let's practice together. Think about this question. How did today contribute to your larger goals? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Today contributed to my goals by allowing me to practice discipline and focus. Even small efforts help create stronger habits over time." Talking about long-term growth gives your story purpose and direction. Now let's explore another thoughtful idea. Recognizing that every day contains lessons, even when we don't immediately notice them. For example, sometimes the lessons of a day only become clear when we take time to reflect. A challenge may teach patience, a conversation may offer new perspective, and a quiet moment may remind us to slow down. This type of reflection makes your speech sound wise and mature. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What lesson from today might still stay with you tomorrow? Pause and answer slowly. Here is one example response. A lesson from today that may stay with me tomorrow is the importance of remaining calm when facing difficulties. A calm mind often leads to clearer solutions. Now let's explore another powerful reflection about daily life. Often, people realize that the way they spend their day reflects the priorities of their life. For example, the way we spend our day reveals what truly matters to us. The time we invest, the effort we give, and the attention we offer to different tasks all reflect our priorities. This kind of thought brings awareness to daily habits. Let's practice together. Think about this question. What did today reveal about your priorities? Pause and answer aloud. You might say something like, "Today revealed that focusing on meaningful tasks is more important than trying to do everything at once. Careful attention often produces better results." Talking about priorities adds clarity and purpose to your reflections. Now let's move toward a deeper understanding of why describing your day is such a valuable exercise for learning English. When you describe your day, you practice vocabulary related to time, actions, emotions, decisions, and reflections. You also train your mind to organize experiences into clear sentences. For example, describing my day in English helps me notice details that I might otherwise ignore. It encourages me to reflect on what happened, how I responded, and what I learned from each experience. This kind of explanation shows awareness of learning and communication. Let's practice together. Think about this question. How does talking about your day help you improve your English? Pause and answer slowly. You might say something like, talking about my day helps me practice organizing thoughts in English. It also helps me express real experiences rather than memorized sentences. Now let's take a final moment to reflect on the bigger picture. Every day we live becomes a small chapter in our life story. Some chapters are dramatic, others are quiet, but each one contributes something valuable to our journey. For example, each day adds another page to the story of our lives. Some pages describe effort, others describe reflection, and some simply capture peaceful moments of ordinary life. Now take a moment and answer this question aloud. If today became one page in your life story, how would you describe that page? Speak slowly, clearly, and thoughtfully. Remember, fluency in English does not appear overnight. It grows gradually through practice, reflection, and the courage to express your real experiences. And one of the most powerful ways to practice is simply by telling the story of your day. Because every day you live provides new words to speak, new ideas to express, and new experiences to describe. So keep observing your life. Keep reflecting on your experiences, and keep sharing your stories in English with patience, consistency, and curiosity. Your fluency will continue to grow, and the story of your day will become a confident voice in English. Let's spend a little more time reflecting calmly on the idea of describing a full day in English, because the more you practice turning daily experiences into clear sentences, the easier it becomes to express your thoughts naturally. And when you reach a B2 or C1 level, the real goal is not simply speaking correctly, but speaking comfortably, expressing ideas that feel real and meaningful to you. When someone asks you about your day, you are not only answering a question, you are sharing a small piece of your life, and every day offers many small details that can become part of that story. The moment you woke up, the first thing you noticed in the morning, the tasks that required your attention, the conversations you had, and the thoughts that appeared as the day slowly unfolded. Sometimes the day begins quietly, without any sense of urgency. You wake up, take a moment to gather your thoughts, and gradually prepare yourself for what lies ahead. Those first minutes of the day often set the tone for everything that follows. You might describe that beginning like this. The day began slowly and calmly. I woke up and allowed myself a few quiet minutes to think about what I wanted to accomplish. That peaceful beginning helped me approach the rest of the day with a clear mind. From there, the day usually begins to move forward, one activity leading naturally into the next. A simple routine can become a story when you describe it carefully. Perhaps you moved from preparation to focus, from planning to action. Each task required attention, and each moment created another step in the rhythm of the day. You might say something like, as the morning continued, I focused on the responsibilities that required the most attention. One by one, I worked through each task, and with every completed step, the day began to feel more organized and productive. As the hours pass, The middle of the day often becomes a period of concentration and movement, where time sometimes feels faster, especially when you are deeply involved in what you are doing. That experience can be described in a simple and natural way. By the time the afternoon arrived, I had become fully absorbed in my work. Time seemed to move more quickly than I expected, and I realized how powerful focused attention can be. Eventually, every day reaches a moment when the pace begins to slow again. Responsibilities become lighter, and reflection starts to replace action. The evening often brings a different atmosphere. One that invites you to think about what happened during the day. You might describe that transition like this. As the evening approached, the energy of the day gradually settled. The tasks that once demanded attention were now finished, and the quiet atmosphere allowed me to reflect on everything that had happened. When you reach this reflective stage, it becomes easier to understand what the day truly meant, because the mind begins connecting experiences, emotions, and lessons. You may realize that the day contained moments of effort, moments of patience, and moments of quiet satisfaction. A thoughtful reflection might sound like this. When I looked back on the entire day, I realized that even the simplest moments had value. Every small action, every decision, and every effort contributed to the progress I experienced. This type of reflection shows the true purpose of describing your day in English. It is not only about language, it is about understanding your own experiences and expressing them clearly. And the more you practice describing those experiences, the easier it becomes to communicate naturally with other people. Because real conversation often begins with simple questions like, "How was your day? What did you do today? What was the most interesting moment? What did you learn from today?" When you can answer these questions with confidence, you are no longer just practicing English. You are participating in real communication. Each sentence you speak becomes a bridge between your experiences and another person's understanding. And that is the true purpose of language: sharing stories, sharing ideas, and sharing moments from everyday life. So whenever you finish a day, take a few moments to think about it. Notice the small events that shaped it, the tasks you completed, the challenges you handled, and the lessons you discovered. Then try describing those experiences in English, slowly, clearly, and honestly. Because every day you live provides new experiences, and every experience becomes another opportunity to practice expressing yourself. Over time, those small daily descriptions will transform your English speaking ability. Your sentences will become more natural, your thoughts will flow more easily, and your confidence will grow with every story you tell. And before you even realize it, talking about your day in English will feel as natural as thinking about it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I truly hope this lesson helped you feel more comfortable talking about your day in English. Because as you've seen throughout our practice, describing your daily experiences is one of the most powerful ways to build real fluency. It allows you to use natural vocabulary, express real thoughts, and connect your English with your everyday life, remember, you don't need a perfect or exciting day to practice English. Even the simplest day can become a meaningful story. You can talk about how your morning began, what you focused on during the afternoon, the conversations you had, the challenges you solved, or the quiet moments that helped you reflect and relax. The important thing is to keep speaking, keep describing, and keep practicing regularly, because fluency grows through repetition, through small efforts made consistently, just like the progress we talked about during this lesson. So tonight or tomorrow, try a simple exercise. Take a few minutes and describe your day out loud in English. Talk about what happened, how you felt, and what you learned. Even if you speak only a few sentences, you are still building your confidence and strengthening your ability to communicate naturally. And remember, progress in English happens step by step, sentence by sentence, day by day. If this lesson helped you, and you would like to continue improving your English listening and speaking skills with me, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next lesson. Thank you again for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next lesson, where we'll continue building your English confidence together.